Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of On Purpose with Aisha Cogborn. And of course, I'm Aisha Cogborn, and I'm really excited about our conversation today because we're getting ready to roll into 2021, and I am not even going to spend a lot of time talking about what I'm sure most of you would classify as the dumpster fire that 2020 was. But that hasn't been the case for everybody. Specifically, when we think about people in small business, believe it or not, there are people who have had their best years ever in 2020. And so as we get ready to go into 2021, I want us to be, acknowledging what is, so I'm not trying to be Pollyanna here. Yes, there are folks who are struggling. There are things that have happened that are beyond our control that have felt like they have crippled you. And in some cases, perhaps they have. But here's the reality. There are things that we can control. There are things that we can't control. And so today we want to focus on, as we're looking at 2021, as you're setting your business strategies, as you're looking at those revenue goals, what are the things that are within your control that you can focus on that will allow you to be successful? Because I am a firm believer that no matter what's going on in the world, that does not mean that we're automatically doomed to fail. It just takes some different strategies. It takes a way of looking at it. It definitely takes a different mindset. And so today, I have three experts that are here with us that are going to talk about some of those strategies that will allow us to think about 2021 differently. What are the things that you can be looking at when it comes to your money, when it comes to your professional relationships? And then I've got a success story that I can't wait to share with you that has just really shows that, this has been an amazing year for lots of people, and 2021 can be an amazing year for you. So I want to quickly introduce our panelists, our guests, and then we're going to jump right into the conversation. But I want you to do a couple of things before we do that. Number one, go ahead and hit that share button, because you're watching this, you see some value in it that has made you stop your scroll and watch. And so I bet that there's somebody else in your network that needs this too. So go ahead, hit share so other folks can benefit from this conversation. And the second thing is, if you have questions, go ahead, type them in the comments. Toward the end of our conversation, if we've got time, we're going to be able to pull a few questions from the audience. So be patient, submit your question, and that just means you got to hang out to the end to see if we get to it, right? So don't go anywhere. So let us introduce our guests. First, we have relationship, not like dating relationships, but professional relationship expert, Ellen Poole. And Ellen has really a career's worth of success based on those professional relationships. And I'm gonna tell you this, she just may change the way that you think about networking by the end of our conversation. So be sure to hang out here. We've got Lanika Johnson. Lanika is the managing partner of Trash Logic, and you're gonna wanna hear this story. I've been connected to Lanika. We've met before, but mainly on social media. And so I've enjoyed watching her growth over the past year. And so can't wait to share that with you. And if you are one of our regular viewers, you know Connie Vander Zand, and she is our resident money expert for small business owners. And so she's here with us again to talk about what are some of those strategies as you're thinking about your planning for 2021. So thanks to all of you. Welcome, and we look forward to hearing from you more in a moment. But Connie, you are up. Let's talk about this money thing. Let's talk about this money thing.
Sure. Well,
So,
go ahead.
Go ahead.
Well, I've been getting asked a lot about planning. And even, have you done your plan yet, Aisha, for 2021?
I have. Just this weekend, but I did do my plan for 2021.
Nice. Nice. And did you have any resistance to it at all?
Well, I've done a lot of mindset work with myself around this. And I think one of the things, and this is why we're having this conversation, I've seen so many people who have not allowed the negativity that they've heard or the challenges that they've seen other people go through hinder them. So I know it's possible. I'll say for me this year, one of the struggles was just the weight of the year. It wasn't that there weren't opportunities, but just being in that right mindset to be able to stay focused and to do the things that we know we need to be doing consistently as business owners to grow our businesses and to hit those goals. And so when you just got the weight of the world on your shoulders for 6 months out of the year, it's just hard to do that.
Yeah, I think that's why I think the key thing is, especially as people are going into this last quarter, is that to rebuild our personal resiliency muscle. And that seems like a really weird place to start when you're talking about planning. But if we're not taking care of ourselves, like we're not sleeping, we're not eating well, we're not getting movement, we haven't been outside for months on end, we can't dream. We can't play with the numbers. We can't get into that space of being a beginner's mindset to do your numbers all over again. So the first thing is to rebuild your personal resiliency muscle. And for me, I know I'm having to rebuild that, figuring out what brings me joy, refilling the bucket, doing more art, taking more downtime. So that's the first thing, is how can people schedule in the next couple of weeks or month some downtime to rebuild?
That's a really good tip. And yeah, I've just thinking about that too. I've been working like a crazy person for probably the past 3 weeks. And this is not something that I recommend to my clients at all, because you all know I'm not a member of Team No Sleep. I believe in getting my rest. But I felt like there was just so much that I needed to catch up on. I feel so behind because I can't even say that I intentionally said I'm going to take this rest earlier in the year, but I had no choice. I just didn't have it in me to push beyond those things that were absolutely necessary. So now I feel like I'm trying to play catch up. So,
yeah. Yeah, and I think that's the personal resiliency that's pushing us. So we've had this very year of start and stops, unknown, of having to pivot some bits, and so that heaviness has just really been making us a little bit more tired than normal. But it's also the time of year. Winter is a time to rest and recover and get ready for the new year. So this is a normal phase for some businesses to have that rest. Not everyone is super busy during the holidays.
That's true. That's true.
Yeah.
So for people that are starting that planning process, and as they're sitting down, and usually one of the first places that people start is, they're looking at their numbers from the current year as they make their projections for the next year. So because this was such a strange year for so many people, how can they be approaching that so they don't, handcuff themselves to perhaps less than ideal results from this year?
Right. Well, I always like to look at the plan at least in 3 different phases. I even saw an email from a prior coach and mentor who said maybe you should have 5 plans, A, B, C, D, and E for next year. It's like planning ahead, playing devil's advocate about what if this happens, what would I do? Just so that you can play out the pros and cons of it. I saw somebody else list it this week as good, better, best goals. So that you knew, okay, I usually call the good goal bare minimum. What do you need to bring in the door? That's, making your house payment, that's or your rent and paying for groceries. What's that bare minimum? So that the business isn't able to support that, you can find other ways of bringing that money in. And then the better goal would be a growth goal. Maybe we'll achieve that in 12 months, or maybe that's where you start adding some things in. An example of that is I would really like to renew a contract for my back office team. But at my bare minimum, it's a little tight to have them in there. a better goal is to bring on 2 new clients, and that will pay for that. So, the next step up is once I get 2 new clients, then I can add that in. And then what's your best goal? I usually call this the big kahuna goal or your big dream goal. But in this case of 2021, not really knowing what 2020, did or how we're going to go forward, maybe we make smaller steps, smaller range steps, like maybe 2 to 3,000 between each goal. So we feel some success that we can build on as money increases. But the other piece too is not be tied to the timeline. A lot of us want to go jump into 2021 and have a really successful first quarter. And what happens if it's not? That doesn't mean we've run out of time. There's still plenty of time in 2021 to make that up, but maybe it's going to have to be a little slower. Again, knowing what your bare minimum number is going to be really crucial as you move forward, so you know exactly how much basic income you need to come in.
Now that's a great strategy. So you're good, better, best, having multiple plans. That's a good approach, because we get to then really not plan in doomsday, but I see so many people, particularly when people are first starting their businesses and they just don't know what their goals should be. They have no sense of, okay, if I do X, my conversion rates are typically Y, and so here are the results that I can accomplish. And so they set these massive goals. I'm a month out of the gate and I'm gonna make $1 million. I'm gonna net $1 million in revenue, and it's just, I'm all for positivity, but they don't even have a plan that gets them to that number. It's just, hey, this is what I want. I'm going to manifest this number. So, to be able to set what is a reachable target, but it still, again, covers what you need, but to not just hold yourself to that, because depending on what you're doing, there is an opportunity to achieve much more than that. And so we don't want to settle for less than what's possible for us either.
Right. You brought up some other points too, is that no, we can't go from 0 to 10,000 a month, which is a normal goal because people want that big jump. But if you don't actually know your numbers, if you don't know what you need for that bare minimum, 10,000 may be too big, or it may not be enough, or you may already be doing that if you've been in business for a little while, but you just haven't been paying attention to it. The one key thing the other piece about getting your numbers together, we are emotionally tied to those numbers, and there's a lot of shame and guilt that can come up when we're looking at our own numbers. So one thing you could do is get a partner, a business partner, accountability person. So that's no cost, right? Maybe a cup of coffee or tea, and have them help you do the numbers, because you're more likely being able to look at their numbers with a different viewpoint than they are, and they can do the same for you. Of course, that's what I do in a strategic planning session, but sometimes it's helpful to have somebody not emotionally attached to the numbers help figure them out, so then you can stay in that planning visionary space, and okay, then you can use the numbers as measuring points, rather than feeling guilt and shame about the debt or the spending choices you've made. So that's another thing, is if you are finding it hard to get into the numbers, get some support around it.
Yeah. Let's talk about guilt and shame that is associated with the numbers for some people, particularly now where, perhaps people have had to get into more debt than they're used to. What are some ways to just push beyond that?
Well, first is to get really clear on it, and that recognize that the debt was created because of the situation, and you did the best you could at that time. We almost need to become friends with our debt. It can get really heavy, and we want to ignore it, but it's there, and it can be paid off in a variety of ways. So how can you find a different way to look at it? One way is, for example, if you have a tax debt to the IRS, and yes, we all hate paying the IRS, can you find a way that the government, what it does or supports, or like the National Guard or something like that, that you can find some joy or respect in that? Another story we hear a lot is a credit card was used to add to your life. And that's what it's doing right now during COVID, is adding to your life. It's supporting you to stay at home and be that way. So if you can put a positive spin on it, so then when you make those payments, there's a little bit of joy and gratitude. Because then you'll pay it over time and you'll be able to, again, good, better, best goals. You're not going to probably pay it off at the good goal. It's the best goal that we're going to start making it really make big trends of paying it down. But you're going to continue to pay that minimum until you can make a bigger lump sum number.
That's one of the things that I love about you when we're talking about money. Money is such a scary thing for so many people, and there's so many emotions connected to it. But I love the way that you're able to have conversations about money that don't feel heavy, don't feel guilt-ridden, don't beat you up over the things that you've done or the mistakes that you've made, but to be able to acknowledge where you are and why you did what you did, and then to just look forward.
Yeah, well, I created a lot of debt when I was growing my business, and I know how it feels. And there is a lot of shame and guilt about how we were raised and what we learned from other people. But if we can really unlearn that and find our own path, then I think debt can be used in a good way. It's just being very more intentional about how we're using it and then how we're going to pay it off is key. But thank you.
So yes. One of the things that you mentioned is you talked about that big kahuna goal. And for me, my big kahuna goals are one of the things that often will keep me up and working beyond what I would if it was just thinking about me just being able to take care of my bills and my needs. But so talk to us about what a big kahuna goal is and how do you plan for that?
Yeah, big kahuna goals it feels like Monopoly money, like we're throwing a dart, but it usually tends to be a revenue goal. It's like, what would you like the biggest impact for your business to make with money? Would you like to create a scholarship? Would you like to invest in other businesses? Would you like to create a school? Or would you really like to pay for all your kids' college education moving forward? So it's revenue driven. But now we have a purpose. The business has a purpose of what it's doing. And so then we kind of play around with the numbers of what might you need to do to create that type. Is it like bringing on team members, or is it leveraging your time by bringing in other associate coaches or other people in your business? And so there's a lot of ways to get there. But if we can put some emotional tie to how money is going to support and make a big impact on our community and our lives, that's what a big kahuna dream is. Now, I do realize that big kahuna, it can be socially not the best term to use. So we are playing around with other terms. If anyone has a suggestion, I am more than open to it. But your big dream is another way to say it.
So if you've got ideas, send those to Connie, Profit with Connie. So that's great. And we're going to come back to you and I'm sure talk a bit more. And if you've got questions about money and how can you be thinking? I hate that word should. How can you be thinking? How can you be planning? How can you, if even a specific situation, go ahead and send that in the comments, however you're watching us, and we'll loop that back to that at the end of our conversation here. So Connie, thanks. And next, let's talk to Ellen. Ellen, welcome. Thanks so much for being here with us today.
Hi, Aisha. It's great to be here. Thanks for inviting me.
So I've got a question for you. What comes to mind when you hear the word networking?
Well, you're going to laugh, but what comes to mind is marketing. I think the term networking has been applied in recent years to a lot of activities that are really marketing. You described me for this program as a professional relationship expert. And I have found over my 30-year career that the building of professional relationships has almost nothing to do with what we think of as networking. Networking, those practices where you get out there and you go to events and you meet people and you tell them all about yourself and you have conversations and you exchange business cards. That to me is all really marketing. You are letting a lot of people know that you're out there and you're available, but it doesn't have anything to do with building real value-based professional relationships.
Yeah, that's a good point. And that's one of the things I'm hearing right now, those people that are used to being out and basically throwing their business cards at everybody and thinking that that's going to lead to getting new customers. And if they take a step back and think about it, it probably hasn't. But they've convinced themselves that they got to be at these events and doing that 3 times a week. And so now they're feeling like, okay, this is hindering me. So if that doesn't work, what are the things that have worked for you when it comes to really building relationships and not just marketing yourself one-on-one, which is, typically what's happening in those situations?
Well, I think the thing we should all acknowledge and realize is that successful professional relationships are based on value. I mean, think about it, Aisha. Who are the people that you want to know? The ones who can be valuable to you. I mean, really, it's what it's about for all of us. And so if you want to develop successful professional relationships, the key is to become someone who is of value to other people. That makes those people come streaming to you. They want to add you to their networks as a valuable connection. And if they add you to their networks, they'll be in yours. So value-based relationships are the way to do that. And of course, the next question is, how do you add value like that? How do you be that valuable person that other people want to know?
So how do you?
I was hoping you'd ask. You do by being, well, there are actually a number of ways you can, but I think the best way, and for someone who's a solopreneur like our audience, the best way is to be good at what you do. And that is so obvious, I can hardly say it, except that what I'm talking about isn't being good at what you do like I think we all think about it. When I say be good at what you do, be good at your work, it's really from a new and different perspective. And that is, be good at what you do so that you solve the problems of the people you come in contact with. Clients, customers, industry colleagues, anybody you come in contact with. Even in a pandemic, you may not be seeing anybody for weeks and weeks, but you will be coming into contact with people for your business. They'll call you, they'll need something, they'll ask you for something. And in order to add the kind of value I'm talking about that creates a meaningful professional relationship, you need to look at what they need from their perspective, not yours. Put yourself in their shoes and say, wow, if I were them, what would I want from me? Can I tell you a story that maybe illustrates that? So
Absolutely.
a few years ago, I wanted to redo the ceilings in my house. I had that old 70s style popcorn ceiling, and I wanted to have it removed and made into flat ceilings. And so I asked around for names of a handyman who could do this. And I had a friend say, you've got to call Bob. He's the best. He charges twice as much as anybody else, but it's worth it. So I said, oh, okay. And I hired this guy, and it was a 3-day messy job. So I had him come to my house when I was on a business trip. And I gave him the key. And when I got home 3 days later, I walked in and he had redone the ceilings and they looked great. So I paid him and he was on his way out, and I was standing in the front hall saying goodbye. And I happened to look up at the ceiling and it's arched in there. I saw the lighting fixture hanging up there and I said, oh, I wish I had asked you to leave that down so I could clean it before it went back up on there on my nice new fresh ceiling. And he looked at me and he said, I thought that's what you want, so I took it apart and cleaned it before I put it back up there. I was in shock. I could not believe that this person had gone the extra mile. He put himself in my shoes. He didn't think about the work from his perspective. I need to do a good job on the ceiling. He put himself into my shoes and said, wow, what would I want if this were my ceiling and my project? I got to tell you, ever since that day, I recommended Bob. I gladly paid his twice as high fee. I'm embarrassed to admit that to entice him to come do more work at my house, I baked brownies for him to try to get him to come over, and I don't even cook. But Bob showed value by problem solving, and it made me rave about him. I would have done anything he wanted. He was in my network because he was a valuable person for me to know. I think that every solopreneur can look at their own work and their own client base right now and say, how can I solve my clients' problems? And therefore, they create a deeper professional relationship than you would if you were just out shaking hands and saying, hi, I'm so-and-so, and here's what I do.
That's so true. And I'll tell you, one of the things that really frustrates me is to see people exhaust more energy into trying to find new clients than the energy that they put into actually serving the clients that they already have. And right now, there's so much focus on social media marketing, and you need to be doing this online, and you need to get Facebook ads, and all these other things to attract, people that you think are your ideal client. And I see people doing that to the detriment of doing exactly what you said, just being good at what you do. And when I think about my business, probably half of my customers have come from referrals. So if I will just do a good job serving the clients I have, they're going to tell other people about me. And I don't have to exhaust all that energy doing all these other marketing activities that I don't want to do anyway, quite frankly.
Exactly. And referrals are not just, it's great to get referrals, but referrals from people who say, this person is fantastic. This person is amazing. You must use this person. In the example of Bob, anytime I had a conversation after that where the words handyman came up, I just yelled out the word Bob. It was like an automatic association thing because he was so terrific. And frankly, many of the people in my own personal network are those same kind of people. I can enthusiastically recommend them. Some of them obviously are for services like handyman or plumbing, but anybody who helps you out, who does a wonderful job. Somebody recently helped me get something resolved with a check I was waiting for from a client. It wasn't hard work, but she simply sat down and said, we're going to fix this problem. That person can now consider me in her network because she's been of value to me. And I think it's exactly what you're saying, Aisha. People are anxious to get out there and market themselves. But really, at the end of the day, what would you rather have? Somebody who knows about you and the service you provide, or somebody who says, oh my God, she's fantastic?
So let's talk about some of the ways that we can take care of the people who are already in our networks, because they may be people that aren't your ideal client. And I think one of the challenges is that sometimes people just have this very self-serving mindset. If I'm not trying to get you to sign a contract with me, I'm not thinking about you. But how do you really take care of the other people in your network so that they are thinking about you and perhaps recommending you to others, even if they haven't worked with you personally?
Well, Aisha, I think that you don't have, let me back up for a minute. There's a belief out there that you have to constantly stay in touch with members of your network so that they don't forget about you. And I do think social media, especially something like LinkedIn, has a benefit because your clients or your contacts can see what you're doing. If you get a promotion, if you do something exciting professionally, if you receive an award, if you post all that on LinkedIn, they're aware of it. But it should be confirming their good judgment that they already have, that you're a valuable person to know. So the reality, though, is that the people in your network who think highly of you don't need to be reminded of you or kept in contact with, because the value that you provide is there today, it's there next year, it's there 10 years from now. But taking care of people in your network is another thing. I think it's important to get in touch with people when you see something that makes you think of them. Let's say you know that somebody in your network, for example, volunteers at the zoo, and maybe you ran across a cute video of rhinoceroses. forward to them and say, I was thinking of you and your work at the zoo when I saw this. I hope all is well. It is one thing to keep in touch with reaching out that doesn't require a response. But so many people, I hate to say it, are fearful if they get a message from you that says, hey, let's get together for coffee. I was wondering how you are doing. So many people interpret that as, uh-oh, this person wants something from me. It's much better to stay in touch by, again, doing little things that make people feel thought of, but don't make them feel like, uh-oh, here comes the request. So notes in the mail, things of mutual interest, all of those things are good. Now, you may encounter somebody in your network who says something that leads you to believe you can help them quickly. For example, right before the pandemic, I had lunch with someone in my network, and I actually asked him to lunch so that I could pick his brain about clients for myself. But during the lunch, he mentioned to me that he was looking for help with something, and did I know anybody? And I told him I didn't, which was true. But I then, having heard his problem, decided to try to help him. And I went and called a bunch of people I knew to see if they could offer him the kind of help he was looking for. And I was able to do that. So I think listening, it goes back to the basic principle I was talking about at the beginning, which is try to solve other people's problems. If it's within your work, your professional space, that's the best. But it's also helpful if you can help people with any problems they might be experiencing. They'll be grateful to you.
I tell you, the word that you said that just rang out like loud on a bullhorn to me was listening. Mm-hmm. My God, how many people don't do that anymore? It may be those quick, not even deep conversations where some of the best and most valuable things come out that allow us to be able to take care of the people who are in our network. And so often when we think of that traditional sense of networking, what I see is people who are standing there in a conversation, waiting to talk, or looking around the room trying to see who else they really should be talking to instead of the person that's standing in front of them. And if we would just listen, my goodness, how valuable is that? And how simple is it?
Well, Aisha, you have hit the nail on the head that you are listening carefully. It's interesting. One of the hobbies I've taken up is ordering books about networking from Amazon and reading them. And there's a trend lately to say, go to a networking event, which of course we can't do now during the pandemic, but go to one of those events and simply ask the people you're talking to what you can do to help them. And then they'll tell you, and then you can do it. And I find that to be so impracticable in real life because, first of all, so often people don't know what they want, frankly, until the time goes by and they didn't get it and wish they had. So people aren't good at thinking through and asking for what they want. Second, people will self-edit. For example, when I talked about Bob the handyman, first, it would never have occurred to me to ask him to clean my light fixture. And second, if he had said to me, what can I do to help you? The first words out of my mouth would not have been, clean my light fixture. So listening carefully to what people want and thinking about their situation from their perspective, you are almost better off because listening carefully, you can intuit what somebody else might need or want that you can help them with. But if you ask people and wait to be told, a lot of times you won't get information that's helpful to you or helpful to the relationship. Not because people don't want to give it to you, but they often don't even know what it is.
I never know how to answer that question. So I think about all the times I'll have these kind of virtual coffee dates with people and they'll ask that question, what can I do to help you? I don't know. I have no clue. And so I think my default has kind of been, well, let's just kind of stay in each other's orbits. And if you see something that seems to make sense, then I'd love for you to do it, but I never know how to answer that question.
Well, no one ever does. I mean, think about the sad circumstance, where someone passes away and what do we all do immediately? Let me know how I can help. And we all mean it, but the poor grieving person, they can't think of anything right at that moment. And even if they think of something, they're not going to start issuing instructions to all of us about what we ought to do to help. And I think people are just generally like that. And so you're exactly right. Your example is perfect. When people ask you, you don't know what to say. And again, a lot of times you just don't know until it's already happened and you think, wow, it would have been nice if he'd cleaned my light fixture.
Yeah, that's so true. That's so true. Thanks so much, Ellen. You've given us so much food for thought here. Don't go anywhere because we are going to be coming back to you and Connie. So hang out. But right now, I would love to introduce Lanika Johnson. Welcome, Lanika.
Hello, how are you?
I'm good. I'm good. I'm so glad you were able to join us tonight. I know you've got a lot going on. You're like living in 3 different states at one time right now.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a little crazy, but I'm so excited to be here. Thank you for inviting me and allowing me to be on the show. I was listening to the 2 other guests, Ellen and the other lady, and I was going, yep, yep, that's what I did, yep. So it's been really good. So thanks for having me.
So before we jump into what your year has looked like, as we mentioned at the top of the show, you're the managing partner for Trash Logic. Tell us a bit about that business and how did you even get into that in the first place?
Oh, wow. Okay. So let me see if I can make this as short as possible. When you and I first met, we were I was in Arizona. And I went through a significant life change. I went through a divorce. And so it was time for me to kind of figure out what was next for me. I had been doing television and doing marketing for about 7 years at that point. And I needed something that felt solid to me. I just needed something that felt tangible, something I felt like I can really dig my nails and my feet and my teeth into this. And it was just an accident that I fell into the waste industry. I left Phoenix to go visit my parents I think for like a week. And I was at the Embassy Suites in Sacramento. And I was literally walking through the lobby of the Embassy Suites, and this is like a God moment for me because I was thinking to myself, I need to figure out a way to be able to move to California to be closer to my family again. And this woman grabbed my arm in the lobby, and I turned around and she said, "Oh, I'm so sorry. I didn't mean to startle you, but I saw you earlier. And I don't know, something about you. I just felt like I needed to talk to you. Have you ever done sales before?" And I said, "Well, yeah, I've been in sales most of my life." She said, "Well, I have an opportunity. I don't know if you'd be interested in it. I don't know if you're working or anything, but just something about you told me that you're the person." And I said, "Okay." And she said, "Have you ever heard of," and she said the name of the company. And I said, "No, never heard of that." She said, "Well, it's a trash company." And I said, "Trash? Okay." That's odd. She said, "I promise you, you don't have to touch trash. It's a straight sales position. You just would have to learn the industry." And I said, "Okay, I'm listening." So she took me into this room that they were doing interviews. They were actually there to do interviews. She took me to this room. She introduced me to her counterpart, told him, I met her in the hallway. I would love for you to talk to her. He was just as confused as I was. He was like, "You just picked this woman up outside." So I talked to them. They told me about it. They asked me to come in and meet with the general manager and do a ride along. I was there, for a few more days. So I said, okay. So I went in, I did the ride along, and I was just gobsmacked. I said, "This is real stuff. This is tangible. This is something that I can really, wrap my arms around. I feel like I can support my kids, here. I might even be able to retire from this. This is like a real job," right? I had been kind of doing the solopreneur thing for so long. I think at that point, probably almost a decade. And I just said, "You know what? I think it's a real job. I'll have benefits. I'll be able to, really take care of my kids." So I got there. I quickly became the top selling person in that whole market. I really, really took to trash like a fish to water. It was just kind of my thing. I was like, this is it. And I remember I had asked if I could move my desk over to the window that overlooked the trash floor. And people say, well, why would you want to look out at the trash floor all day? I actually worked at the transfer station where they brought all the trash. Why would you want to look at the trash floor all day and see all these trucks dumping? And I said, because that's my money. What they're dumping is my money. So I want to see my money coming in all day. And it just reminded me, all day of what I was doing and how I was providing for my kids. And that's kind of how it started for me. That's how I ended up in the industry. So fast forward, there was a lot of legislation that was passed, I don't know, about almost a decade ago, about 8-9 years ago in California around recycling. The haulers were supposed to be helping to ease all the property management companies kind of into this new legislation. But, you have a background in waste. It's just not really conducive to the bottom line to help these properties recycle and reduce the amount of waste, right? You're really there to increase their waste. And so when I had these clients, I only worked with commercial clients. I didn't work with residential. So I had these clients that were saying, look, our bill is just going up. We're getting these contamination fees now. The county is fining us and the hauler is, giving us these fees. You got to help us somehow. And I was like, well, I'm the hauler. I can't really help you. I'm really here to give you another bin. You want some more trash? I can get you some more, bins. And at some point I said, okay, you know what? I can help you. I just can't help you here. This is just not the place I can help you. So fast forward to 2016 and my partner and I, Richard, we started Trash Logic. And it was really just to help those clients, just like Ellen was talking about, those value-based relationships. I had built those relationships over time and people really trusted me. So when we started Trash Logic, I started profitable. I did not start in the red. I started with clients because they already knew me. I had already been helping them as much as I could, before then. So they knew me. So, it goes back to people work with people that they know and like, but not only people that they know and like, people work with people that they know can solve their problem. Right? So you can come and be a professional visitor all you want. They'll like you and they'll talk to you, but they may not give you their money unless they know that you can solve their problem. So that's kind of where I was in 2016. And I started solving problems and we grew super fast. So we started with one property in Fremont, California. And we kind of had a bet. We said, if we can get to 6 properties by December. We started in September. If we can get to 6 properties by December, then we'll have proved our concept and we'll know that we're on to something. If we can get to 12 properties by the end of 2017, then we know that we're about to do this. So the goal was 6 by December and then 12 by the next December. By December of 2016, we were in 36 properties. So by the end of the following year, we had tripled that number. And so now we service almost 200 properties 6 days a week.
Wow.
Yeah.
So one of the reasons that really made me reach out to you is I remember, I think this was probably back in the summer, and this was as you all were growing, and you had shared a thread of a conversation that you had with somebody who was essentially kind of calling you foolish for some of the moves that you were making and the risks, I guess, as they saw it, that you were taking while everybody else was scared to grow or to do anything. So getting into all of the details, just tell me how it's been for you to be in a phase of growth and things are going well when so many people are there's just so many naysayers. So don't do that, that's too risky.
Mm-hmm. Well, let me back up a little bit. So before I started Trash Logic, I really had a come to Jesus moment with myself. I wasn't happy with the work that I was doing. I loved the industry, but I felt that I was not making the impact that I wanted to make. And I wasn't doing the best job I could do for the customers that I had. And I didn't feel that I was really serving them. So I had a really tough day at work one day, and I was driving back home, and I pulled over to Popeyes really to pray. I pulled over just to pray, and I ordered some food just to eat on the way home. And before I could pull off, just in my spirit, I heard "bet on yourself." So I grabbed my pen and I wrote "bet on yourself." You know, in the moment, it was kind of a, bet on yourself. Okay, trust yourself, have faith in yourself. Okay. And I just kind of took that note with me and I drove home and I put it on my nightstand. But over the next few weeks, I really started to feel that in my spirit, that bet on yourself. You can trust yourself. You know this, you've got this, right? And so I had a conversation with the owner of my company at the time. And I said, I'm just thinking that we've kind of come to the end of the road. Can we just, call this done? I didn't say, can we part as friends? I didn't want that. I just wanted to go. So I said, can we just kind of call this done? And he said, yes. And so the next day I went and filed the LLC for Trash Logic. I decided I was going to bet on myself, and it was different. I told you I've been a solopreneur really since 2001. I have been an entrepreneur. I have had several businesses, lots of different types of businesses. This time was very, very different. I could feel it in my spirit that it was different. And people around me felt the energy was different. And every single day, even though I had my list of things to do, I walked out my door just with that mindset of bet on yourself and just in faith. And I would go downtown and I would say, okay, Lord, I don't know exactly what I'm supposed to do today, but I'm going downtown because I know there's something there for me to do. And I would go downtown and inevitably something would pop up and I'd say, okay, I got to go take care of that. I got to go to the IRS. I got to go over to the unemployment office. I got to go, like all these little things started to just kind of fall in place. And so when it came to 2020, I was already thinking, I can get through anything. I can really get through anything. So in 2019, I told my business partner, I said, 2020 is going to be a rough year. He said, well, how do you know that? I said, I don't know. I just know it's going to be a rough year and we need to prepare for it. I don't know. I said, I feel like the housing market's going to crash. Something's going to happen. And we need to prepare for it. So we really started saving. We really started, being very strategic about where we spent money, what equipment we bought, just being very, very careful about what we were doing. And so when I got that text message that you saw me post, it was someone who was in the industry that was saying, you're crazy. This is right at the beginning of the pandemic. Everything was shutting down in March. You're crazy to keep on going. You need to shut down your offices. I have 5 offices. He said, you need to shut down your offices. You can do this job in your pajamas from home by yourself, let go of all your staff, like all these things. And I was just like, I'm not doing all of that. I'm pressing on the gas. It's go time. It's time to go. People are home. It's a pandemic. People are creating more trash. There's more opportunity. So, and that is exactly what we saw happen. There was a little bit of a dip in the beginning where, some of the management companies were a little bit nervous. And so they said, oh, we're going to have to cancel some of these contracts because, people aren't paying their rent. But we saw a 600% increase in trash. So what happened?
Wow.
People started calling us. That is why I am in DC. I got a call in the middle of the pandemic. They said, listen, I know you're in California. We heard about you. Please come to DC. We need your help. So that is how I ended up in DC. So, you know, I, like you said in the beginning, I'm living in 3 states, but it's all gravy. It's all good. We are growing. We are prospering. This has been an amazing year for us. I mean, we've had our challenges. Don't get me wrong. The labor market has been very tough. There were people that were on unemployment, did not want to come to interviews. That has been tough. But we have absolutely grown through this pandemic.
Wow. What a story. 600% growth. Now, you all can't see, I can see her, but I can see Connie backstage and she's clapping her hands. And
Yes.
that's exactly why I wanted you to join us today, because I think so many folks have cheated themselves out of opportunities because they're looking at what was and not what's going to be. And so if you can, whenever maybe the problem was this, but the problem has changed and now it's that. Yeah. But it may still be the same people that you were serving. Mm-hmm. But how shift to make sure that you're still in alignment with where opportunity is, instead of just saying, oh, well, it's a bad year. Let me, sit here and watch Netflix and eat ice cream.
Nope. That pivot, that ability to pivot is so essential to getting through adversity in your business, because we have our trash management program, and that has been going on, since we started. But this year we saw so much trash, and we said, you know what, there's another opportunity here. There are people that there are managers that have their own trash porters on site that are doing that are taking care of their trash, but they don't have the know-how to actually manage the trash, the waste stream. So what I'm doing here in DC is a completely new line of business that I created in the pandemic, and that is literally managing just all of the services that touch the trash. So the property that I'm on, I'm managing the waste management team that comes there. I'm managing the janitors that come there. They have a doorstep trash program. I'm managing that vendor. I'm managing their bulk vendor. I'm on site every day. I audit every single area of that property. I send them a report every week. That's a brand new business. So they have my regular service, my regular trash management service, and they added this component on top of it. It's called our managed services program. They added that on top of it. So you have to be looking for other ways that you can make money. What are some different service lines that you can introduce to your clients? For the ones that may not need your primary service, but they can still use your expertise. They can still use you. They just don't know how they can use you. So you need to come up with it.
Yes. I mean, that's entrepreneurship. If you had to define entrepreneurship, it is just being a problem solver.
Being a problem solver.
Inventing new solutions to the problems that people have. Sometimes it's problems they don't even know they have.
And most of them don't know what their problem is. If they knew, they would have fixed it.
Yeah. No, this is good. This is good. So we're in the home stretch here, and so I'm going to come back and bring Connie and Ellen back into the conversation. And I really just want to take a moment, and if you've got questions, if you're watching and you have any questions around money, around your professional networks, about growing and having the right mindset when, maybe there are a lot of naysayers who they don't see it for you, then please take a moment, drop your questions, because we're only going to be here for a few more minutes. So don't delay. Run to your keyboard. If you're in there washing dishes and your phone somewhere else, run over back to your keyboard and get your questions in. But I want to just reset and take this step back. We're coming into 2021. It's a brand new year. I like to think of a new year as a clean slate. That's why we love January 1st so much, right? Because it feels like that reset. But it's just wisdom to be able to take experiences that we've had, from the past, and to bring those with us. So if you had to take a step back and look at 2020 and say, okay, here's something that perhaps wasn't what I wanted it to be. However, this is the lesson that I'm going to take into 2021 to make that better. Tell me what that will be. And Ellen, Connie, let's come to one of you first. So whoever's ready for that one.
Mine was that I had made some serious debt repayment, and I was feeling really, really good about it. And I had forgotten to have a conversation with my tax pro. And so I had to take a backward step, but my W-2 is going to be the largest it's been in 6 years because of it. And so I think the lesson learned was to remember to include your team in your conversations as you're going through things. Like, you make a plan and this is what you're going to want, just run it by your tax person or your bookkeeper, just to make sure you're on the same page. Because I was upset at first and I was really super annoyed, but on the other side of it, it's a positive thing, and it was a little hard, but I'm feeling better about it. So thanks for asking.
Thanks so much for sharing that, Connie. And some of the mistakes that I've made, and they've been big mistakes. I'm like, oh my gosh, I can't believe I've done that. I'm like, well, I'm glad I did it now, because maybe this is a 5-figure mistake, or a 4-figure mistake versus a 6 or 7-figure mistake. So I hope that you're able to carry that lesson over, so that in the future it's not even bigger one. So thanks for sharing that tip. Ellen, how about you?
Well, one of the things I learned, I took time during the pandemic. When it happened, I was able to work from home, but my workload dropped significantly. And I was the person headed down that slope toward what you were describing, Netflix and ice cream. And in order to stop myself, I actually got out a project I'd been working on before, which is a book. And I'm happy to report that I wrote a book and finished it, and it'll be published this April. But the lesson I learned from the pandemic is having a goal and continuing to work on it is so critical to feel like you're making forward progress. Even if you only do a little bit at a time. I might have worked on that book for only an hour some weeks of the pandemic, but having it to work on, having that big picture goal kept me upbeat and uplifted the whole time. And now I have a book to show for it. I have the adventure of learning all about publishing and books, and that's a new world for me. But the lesson I took from that is, when you feel disoriented, find a goal and work toward it, because no matter how slow your progress, it still keeps you feeling good about things.
That is, oh my goodness, that is such valuable advice, because when you've got that goal, you've got that thing to work towards, you can't stay on that couch, because it's just pulling on you. And I'm telling all of you right now, when that book comes out, make it your business to get it, because I've read it and it's phenomenal. And there are so many things from that book that I've been able to put into practice. And I think of myself as somebody that's, pretty good at this stuff, but there were so many things that I learned from it. And so I'm just looking forward to more people being able to hear from you and to put those things into practice, because it really is going to change the trajectory of their professional lives that they do.
Thank you, Aisha.
So Lanika, 2020, what's something that was, I didn't feel so good, but got a lesson that you're carrying into 2021 to make things better?
The gas. Never take your foot off the gas. That is the lesson that I learned. There was one point when we lost, I think in the beginning of the pandemic, we lost 3 contracts, like in a week. And I wanted to go to bed. I said, oh no, please tell me this isn't happening. And so instead of going to bed, I called my team together and said, all right, what's in your pipeline? Let's go. It's time to get out there. I posted more on LinkedIn. I reached out more to my contacts. I made sure that we were auditing more, so that we made sure that we were doing what we said we were doing on these contracts. So, we just put our foot on the gas. And then we started really, those audits really paid off because we were the first ones to say, this is how much more trash you have on site. You can't afford to get rid of us. You know, having that data is so important. So all you entrepreneurs, data is king. I'm gonna tell you that. Data is king. Knowing, she said knowing your numbers, but knowing what you know is very important. You need to know everything that there is to know about your business.
That's good. That's good. We've got a question from the audience, and they ask, what's one crucial piece of advice you would give for time-intensive service-based businesses to be able to offer new service lines? So either, you know, and as we talked about, solutions to new problems. So that's kind of where they're going with that. Lanika, do you want to take a shot at that, or anyone else?
So can you rephrase it for me a little bit? You know, I'm a little slow.
So this person, it sounds like they've got there is a service-based business, very time intensive. And it sounds like they're perhaps a dip. So they're looking at expanding into new service lines or solving new problems. So you have a bit of advice there.
Yes. So this is really important. So when you're planning to introduce new service lines, you have to go into it without having a predetermined destination. When you first start, you need to go into it with a whiteboard, a blank sheet of paper, and you need to really approach it as the customer and say, what are some of the issues that me as the customer that I'm facing? And what are the things that I just don't know how to do because I either don't have the skill, or I don't have the resources, or I don't have access to the information? What are those things that me as the customer that I would need? And then as the service provider, you need to go through each of those things and address those. How do I address this issue? How do I address this issue? How do I address this issue? And how do I solve all of these problems? And they may be all different service lines that you can introduce into your business. So that's really important, that you go in with a blank sheet of paper.
Excellent. Thanks for sharing that. So we are getting ready to wrap up our conversation, but before I do, I want to share something with our audience. You know, we've talked about some of the things to carry you into 2021 strong. You know, being able to deal with maybe some of the places that this year has taken us financially that didn't feel good, but how do we do things differently? We've talked about ways to keep that strong mindset. We've talked about ways to continue to be valuable to the people in your professional networks. That doesn't look like having to show up and toss business cards at somebody. And we've shown you that there are people out there who are thriving, who have made the pivots, who have looked at new ways to solve problems for their customers and the people that they serve, and they're thriving. So one of the things that we want to do for you as you go into your 2021 business planning is to give you a place to do that, because we know accountability is very important. And quite often there are situations where, you know, we want to put the plans together and we just don't do them because we are too busy looking at other things and just focusing on working in the business and not working on the business. And so we are planning on January 30th, a 2021 small business planning retreat. And so I'm going to share that information with you all before we head out today. But I want to, so don't hang up. Like, that's why I'm saying, like, don't disconnect, because I want to get final thoughts. But I know how you all are. Like, when you start hearing the word final thoughts, then you're like, oh, it's over. It's not over. So hang on. Don't go anywhere. So we want to get our final thoughts from our experts here. And then I'm going to tell you about that strategy retreat, virtual strategy retreat. So before we get to that, ladies, tell me, if you had to give our viewers, our listeners today, one last bit of wisdom, what would that be?
Bet on yourself.
Bet on yourself. Doesn't matter if it's pandemic.
Don't
Yes.
Don't overlook opportunities to show value to people. I think too many people are looking for the big chance or the important person, and they're saving it all. You do not know who you're interacting with, who could be a valuable supporter down the road. Give it your all every time. Show value to everybody.
Excellent. Thank you so much for that.
And mine would be go into this with a beginner's mindset. 2021 is that fresh start, that fresh year. And can you look at your business offerings or what maybe pivoting your business to be more innovative? This is going to stick around for a while. This is our new normal. So you get to choose how you want to show up in business and what you would like that new normal to be. So go in with a beginner's mindset and dream big. Because if you bet on yourself, you can.
And Connie, one of the things that you talked about around those numbers is having that accountability, somebody who is neutral, who can look at that with you. And I know based on what you do for folks, it's beyond just the accountability. I mean, you have this very unique blend of what you bring to the table for folks and really being able to almost, kind of be life coach, be, accountant master person who, I'm not going to do your books for you, but I've got so many years of experience doing this. I can see things in the numbers that you won't see. And then also just really keeping people focused on what those bigger goals are. So they're not so stuck in the minutia, that they actually get to live their lives and pay themselves well and do all those other things. So if somebody wants to find out what it would look like to have you in their life, how can they find out more?
We have moneyactiontips.com is an easy space. There's a free resource there about the cash handling. And the key thing is I want people to know what their next steps are. And so there's an easy button to schedule a free 30-minute conversation with me to talk about anything we talked about tonight, or questions you have in general about bookkeeping or what to do next in your business. I just want to make sure you have what you need to make the next action step to make 2021 the best. So please go to moneyactiontips.com and take what you need.
Excellent. Thanks, Connie. And Ellen, I know we've got the book coming out in spring. I cannot wait. But if somebody wants to connect with you before then, or just to, kind of keep you on their radar, so they can see what you're talking about and what you're doing, what's the best way for them to reach you?
Oh gosh, that's a scary question, Aisha, because probably just plain old email, and it's so amateur night, it's not even funny, but I really am accessible. So if somebody wants to email me and ask me a question, I'm always happy to answer. And you can do that at the number 2 and then my name, ellenpoole@gmail.com. So it's pretty easy, pretty down to earth, but hopefully I can offer advice.
Excellent. Excellent. You're on LinkedIn too as well, aren't you?
I am on LinkedIn.
Okay. They can find you there too. Excellent. See that? Look, she's giving you direct access to her. Look, you don't get, see what happens when you hang out with me? Like, you get my people and you get direct access to people. Knowing me has its privileges, people. Come on. All right. And Lanika, if people want to follow your journeys and adventures in entrepreneurship, how can they keep up with you?
My Facebook page is my name, Lanika E. Johnson, Entrepreneur. So you're going to see a couple of, pages, but you want the one that ends in entrepreneur, Lanika E. Johnson, Entrepreneur. And there's 2 I's in my name, Lainika.
Excellent. Thanks so much. Well, thanks to all of you for joining us today. I appreciate you taking that time. And as promised, I want to tell you about our upcoming small business strategy retreat. And so this is happening on January 30th. It's a Saturday, noon to 3 p.m. Eastern time. And so if you're on the West Coast, it's not too early. If you're on the East Coast, it's not too late. And it's only $97. And let me tell you what you can expect at this retreat. We're going to come in and we're going to do some work here. So we're going to set you up to really start thinking about the strategy, your vision. What is it that you really want? Because it's easy for us to forget that, particularly when we kind of get stressed out and thinking that what we want isn't realistic anymore. So we're going to get a reset and get some clarity around that vision. Then we're going to literally be able to go through not only some, you're going to get some education, and then we're going to go do it. So that whole thing of like, okay, yeah, I'm going to sit in this in this session and hear people talk about how to set good goals and then never do it. Yeah, that's not going to happen, because we are going to sit still and actually work on those goals. And here's the best part about it. If you get stuck, you are going to have coaches who will be there to get you unstuck. I will be there, and the COO extraordinaire, I like to call her, Dr. Erica Brown from Dr. Erica by Design, is going to be there as well. So those hurdles that keep you from reaching your goals year after year, we're going to talk about that stuff. We're going to work through that stuff. We're going to be proactive so that this doesn't end up being another year that you fail to reach your business goals. 600% growth. We heard that during a pandemic. Do you believe that growing is possible for you? I do. Do you believe that 2021 can be one of the best years, if not the best year in your business? I do. But it's not going to happen by accident. So you have got to be willing to actually do something to make that happen. So go right now to newyearplanningretreat.com. No S on that. newyearplanningretreat.com. You can learn more about it. Sign up. Again, it's only $97, and you're going to come out with value that could, again, make this one of the best years ever for you. So if you struggle with getting that done and actually sticking to your goals, then I want to invite you to join us on January 30th. And I want to again thank our guests, Ellen Poole, Connie Vanderzanden, and Lanika Johnson, for joining us. And thanks to all of you for listening and hanging out with us. And until next time, make sure that we make 2021 a year that we live every day on purpose. We'll see you later.